So here we are. This is part 2 of building Pig. So let's just kind of review. If you kind of took a break after that first video, let's review what we did. We're using abstraction to kind of make a readable program. We're just going to stay big picture in our Pig game loop, so someone can come in and look at this and go, "Well, how does the Pig game work?" And they can see it all right here, right? And so maybe they're not interested in how the player's name is prompt, how the current score is, updated, or how every player's turn, the mechanics of that. If they want to go find it, then they can go scroll down and go find that code elsewhere. So let's go ahead and start building these. This is going to be pretty easy, this prompt player name. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so prompt player name now exists. I just kind of use that Eclipse shortcut to generate it. And we already have a scanner. If you haven't, if you're just jumping in, I've defined a class-wide static scanner that I can use. So go ahead and pause the video here if you need this code. Don't forget to import the scanner class as well. So let's then use this scanner to prompt the user for their name. Okay, so let's say enter name. Okay, so this is going to happen twice. So I guess for both players, it'll say enter name. Right, and I guess if we wanted to make two methods that said enter player 1 name and enter player 2 name, we could do that if we wanted to make it a little bit shinier, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. So we're going to enter their name, and we're going to return whatever the next line is. Okay, so whatever the scanner's next line is going to be the player's name. So that's pretty easy. And, looking at this, probably some of you guys are thinking, kind of overkill to build a method that just looks like that, right? Yeah, probably, right? So it's maybe not worthy of being exported, but I just wanted to give you an example of how you could use this idea. Sometimes your prompting or your, whatever you're doing in your programs is going to take more than just these 2 lines. So let's just kind of just keep in mind that this is just practicing that abstraction idea. This one maybe not necessarily the greatest example of to do it, but we'll see if with player turn and printing the score, it's going to be a great idea. So what's next? We need to print the current score. So let's go ahead and kind of try to format this a little bit. Printing the current score. I like these things. These can be kind of nice to kind of organize things a little bit. So let's print a couple of these. And then in between it, we'll kind of try to do something like this. Let's say player 1 score. So it's going to be player 1 name. And then let's say they're, put a colon and then their score. And then let's give some spaces. Format it a little bit better. And then the same thing, but with player 2. I'm just going to do this so I can see it all in the same line here. Player 2 name, colon, and then player 2 score. There you go. Okay, so we have some scores now printed, and it should look pretty nice. Now you can kind of see here, I forgot to concatenate this on. Kind of see here how this might look nasty inside the while loop. So if you really, this is a better example of when to put something out of your main chunk of code and, export it to its own function. So here we go. That's the player 1 score. Now I guess the player turn is going to be the most interesting method. That's really what everything depends on. The game mechanics really rely on it. So let's go ahead and create the method stub. And how's it going to work? Okay, so eventually we want to return their score. So first let's say it's so-and-so's turn. Okay. After kind of doing a line break. I've found that these line breaks really help organize the game a little bit. So let's go ahead and say, oops. It's happening to me a lot lately. So let's say it's player 1's turn. Okay, so now what we need to do is we don't know how many times they're going to want to go, right? We don't know how many times they want to roll, so a while loop is going to be necessary here. And I can imagine that we want the while loop to run as long as the player wants to roll. So let's go ahead and build a Boolean variable called player wants to roll. A player wants to roll, and we're going to set that to be true. So we're going to assume that they want to roll the very first, like obviously when the dice is handed to them, they want to roll. And now we can build the while loop for when, so while the player wants to roll, let's go ahead and let them roll then. Okay, so what's the roll going to be? The roll is going to be an integer called a random, let's call this a random roll. And it's going to be, we have to get a number from 1 to 6. So we can get a random decimal number from 0 to 1. Let's start there. And of course, this is a double, but we're going to fix this up. So what if we wanted it to be from, so right now this is from 0 to 1. If I multiply by 6, this is going to be from 0 to 6, but never quite 6, right? So it's going to be 0 point something up to 5.9999, whatever. If we just cast that to an integer, let's cast this whole thing to an integer. If you're not familiar with casting, go check out some of my videos about typecasting. But I assume that if you're at this point in your programming interest, that you understand how to cast. Remember that the random is a double. If we want it to be stored as an integer, we have to kind of tell Java, I want the integer part of the answer. And it won't round it, it'll just cut off the decimal. So right now it's going to get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So if we just increment all those by 1, this whole thing by 1, then we would have something from 1 to 6, like a dice. So the random roll will be now from 1 to 6. And here's where we got to catch it. Okay, right here we have to say, if that random roll was a 1, then they don't even have a choice. The turn is over. Okay, so if the random roll is equal to 1, then their turn is over. We're going to return what's their turn score, right? What score would they get if they rolled a 1? Do you remember the rules of the game? If you roll a 1, you get nothing for the turn. This is what we're going to do. Otherwise, we're going to keep track of their current turn score. We should probably keep track of it up here, right? Let's keep track of that int turn score. Let's set it to be 0 right now. And if they roll, right? So if they roll anything other than a 1, their turn score gets incremented by that random roll. So turn score usually get increased by random roll. And then we want to prompt to see if they want to roll again. Okay. Go ahead and do. Okay, want to roll again. So what I'm going to do is make this a yes or a no answer like this. 1 is yes, 2 is no. Now, we're not really building in some very good robust features. So like if they type in like yo mama or something like that, we're just going to assume that people are going to cooperate and say yes or no with the answer 1 or 2. So we'll build that in later, perhaps if we want to make this a more robust program. So if their choice was a 2, so if their choice was, okay, actually we got to catch their response, right? So the choice is going to be the result of the scanner. Let's take the next integer. And if their choice was a 2, then what we want to do is set the Boolean variable player wants to roll to be false. So that should take care of it. And if they say yes, then nothing changes about that variable, and then we'll roll, it'll just roll another number. So we should probably actually, after we say want to roll again, let's go ahead and display their current score. Okay, so how about, let's do, yeah, we're going to tidy this method up in a couple of ways. So let's start here with it. So let's do a little message in here. Okay, I'm going to run out of time here. So I'm going to stop this video right here. We're halfway through the player turn, which is kind of like the real meat of the program. We're going to kind of display, okay, so far you have this many points, want to roll again. So far you have this many points, want to roll again. And then also right here, as they kind of disqualify themselves with a 1, we should display a message right here. So we should put a message right here. And then we're going to put a message right here. And then we're going to kind of get out of here. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video.